Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. More and more I am encountering people who are lamenting the loss of civil discourse in our society. I'm sure you've heard that, and probably even more sure that you have experienced that. There was a time, and it seems like some sort of golden age long ago, when we could disagree about something and discuss it and still be friends. Somehow that seems much harder to do now. We seem to live in a world where our minds are closed and few are truly open to consider new ideas. We seem to live in a world where my opinion is right and any other opinion is wrong, and you are a bad person for thinking differently. We seem to live in a world with everybody talking and not many people listening. There really doesn't seem to be much room for walking a mile in someone else's shoes anymore. And the church's call for unity and oneness seems to echo in empty halls. This week we are exploring some of the old standard hymns that we know and love, and which in our Evangelical Lutheran Worship Hymnal can be found between hymns 600 and 700. And in our world of today, perhaps we need to hear again and anew, "Blessed be the tie that binds." "Blessed be the tie that binds" doesn't call us to always agree about issues or topics, but it does seek to remind us that we are people together, united in our common humanity, united in our need for one another, united most of all in our need for God and God's love and grace. This hymn has an interesting origin. It was written by John Fawcett, and the story goes that in 1772 he was serving a church in rural England as its pastor, and had decided to accept a position as pastor at a church in London. His bags were packed and the wagon was loaded with their household goods as he prepared to leave. It was then that the people of the parish and his wife prevailed upon him to stay. He wrote this hymn in response, speaking of the close relationship he had with those folks. The hymn begins by talking about the things we have in common and how that draws us close to one another. The first verse begins, "Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love. The unity of heart and mind is like to that above." What marks Christian unity is not agreement about everything, but rather love. The love of God for us and the love we share as God's children. That love is more important than our petty disagreements. And when we experience it and live it out, it is like being in heaven itself. Verse 2 speaks of our constant need for God. Before our Father's throne we pour our ardent prayers. Our fears, our hopes, our aims are one, our comforts and our cares. The hymn speaks of how we are alike in our need for God's grace, how we are alike in crying out to God, how our fears, our hopes, our aims are one, the things we care about and the things we take comfort in. We share the human condition, and most importantly, we share our need for God. Verse 3 continues the theme of our shared plight with a twist. We share our mutual woes, our mutual burdens bear, and often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. We are reminded that we are in this together, and together we support and care for each other. When I meet with families just before a funeral for their loved ones, before we have prayer, I share with them something I ran across years ago. It said, "Joys shared are doubled. Sorrows shared are cut in half." And then we talk about how the people have come to the funeral to help them bear the burden of their loss and to be with them in their sorrow. Sharing burdens and sympathizing with others is one of the most important ways we express our faith. We can't get so caught up in our own ideologies or viewpoints that we neglect to see the other as a person and a child of God just like us. Finally, verse 4 points us to the hope we have in God and what this kind of unity looks like when it is lived out. From sorrow, toil, and pain, and sin we shall be free, and perfect love and friendship reign through all eternity. In his 80s, Albert Schweitzer endured heavy work and jungle heat at his medical mission in Africa. Worried about him doing that at his age, others expressed their concerns as they watched him help a woman carry a large basket of wood up a hill. Schweitzer answered their concerns by saying, "No one should have to carry a burden like that alone." May we listen and understand, united in the love we share in Christ. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.